Okay, here I am, the disreputable me. To save my hands, I put on these nice nitrile gloves, which are very thick, industrial quality. They're called Viper, whatever Viper means. I guess normally a viper bites you, but I think these vipers are protecting you, keep you from being bitten, if you will. So what I've done here is I've prepped the mold, and I just want you to know it is a mold, even though it's not the kind of mold that you're used to, either one piece like I make out of silicone RTV, or a two-piece mold, which if I did this a lot would be better. That works really well for making nose cones and Corvette shells and all that kind of stuff. This is an inside mold. It's meant to work from the inside, and then you lay up over it, and what you're casting is basically over the mold. And there are two-piece molds that have an outside and an inside, and that it's just another kind of molding process, casting process. So what I'm going to do here, I want you to see if you can watch what I'm doing. What I'm doing now is I've mixed up a half mix of epoxy resin. That's two of these of the resin and half of one of these for the hardener. I've mixed it up. I have a cheapo brush right here. I've got over there the fabric, 2 layers of about, well, I think it's 5 ounce e-glass. So I'm going to go get it. And here's the fabric. You have to watch out for fabric, because this kind of fabric is not, it doesn't have a weave that sticks together. It's real easy to pull it apart. The edges aren't bound either, so they come apart easily. This is not twill. This is bias ply fabric. It just goes one way and then the other, what's called rank and file. Twill is nice because it's actually has another line of fabric, strands running diagonally, and what it does is it wraps around nose cones really nicely. This doesn't. So anyway, what we're going to do now is turn on the motor, and this is 24 inches long by, I didn't measure the length, so we see the direction it's going. And what we're going to do, not get it hooked up on that, is stop the motor. And I'm going to lay this on here nicely. It has the release agent on it. Let's lay it so that it's just perpendicular to the center line of the mold. And just kind of smooth it down. And let it go over a little bit. Like so. And remember, when you lay up fiberglass things, it doesn't rest very well. It doesn't. If you brush one direction, it's going to be going the opposite of the fabric in the other direction. So if you go like this, you're going to be pulling the fabric this direction. So what we want to do is just make sure that there aren't any things like this where you have a tear or a fold. And this is going to get a little messy. However, it's going to work really well too. So let's just see if we can work out the bugs on this, just like so. Now what happens, of course, is that this is going to start giving us problems with what I'm going to have to do is end up cutting it. However, for now, we're going to go ahead and lay this on here. Watch what happens as the epoxy wets the fabric, and then you can't see it anymore, and that means you've got a thorough wetting. And what we do. We want to make sure it's thoroughly wetted. And this is fresh resin. So all of the color of the mold comes through as the glass becomes transparent. One of the things I love about doing this, even though it's a messy job, is how this happens. Now you can get fish eyes, and fish eyes are what happens when you have a wax resist or oil or something that's in the mix. Fish eyes are really a pain. And I lacquer lots and lots of musical instruments and furniture and things like that. In lacquering, you've got fish eyes too, awful ones. And that's where there's something in the surface that you're lacquering that resists. It dissolves the finish. It won't stick to it. And so what it ends up doing is creating what we call a fish eye. Now you can see there's some individual fibers that are coming loose here. One of the big problems. Now you see that irregular surface? Those are fish eyes. That's just the way it is. And the reason is because the wax, which is the release agent, is actually coming through the fabric. However, this is saturating it. What we want to do is to create a nice surface for the next layer. So now let's run this a little bit. And what I'm going to do is something very interesting. I'm going to take some scissors. And I'm going to cut this fabric. Like so. From this side. Just going to cut it. As we see right here. I'm not really getting anything on the scissors themselves, any kind of resin. So now, to make this work well, we're going to smooth this down, just like so. If we have any folds, we want to make sure they're in places where it doesn't matter. So now we apply some more of this resin. These are folds, wrinkles, if you will. So we just want to make sure where it overlaps, it's really thoroughly saturated. Just as you see. Okay, almost there. Now what I do is I pull this through just like this and wrap it so that it has a diagonal. This is going to allow me to use the scissors. That's what they're for. Cut right in here. We'll just cut this piece right off. This is where the smaller tube in the airframe of the rocket comes through. There we go. Look at that. Pretty magical. We got a problem here, but we can deal with it. Maybe we'll just cut it with the scissors. There we go. Now just make sure that's done. Make sure this overlaps a little bit. This is going to be sealed in by the next layer. So, almost out of resin in this mix. We'll have to go for another one soon. But this is what I talk about when I say, when you use a brush like this,